Hey guys, welcome back to another video in the r/PettyRevenge subreddit. I have 4 beautiful petty revenge stories for you today, and like before, we'll be reading through them, then we will come together at the end for a chat. So without further ado, let's jump into the stories, shall we? In search of extremely ugly car. Can't post an image. Here is the text of a post to a local message board. In search of extremely ugly car that runs. Does not need to go far. Live in downtown and someone filed a formal complaint because I have a raft trailer parked in the street. No driveway or backyard. Code enforcement is very sweet, and even though it is not compliance, we use it all the time, and the neighbors have never had an issue. Been there for 3 years. I'm assuming the uptight complainer is new. Therefore, I would like to buy a hideous car and have my children spray paint it with fluorescent neon colors and park it in the same spot. They're going to wish the nice trailer was still there. Maybe have a conversation with your neighbor first when you have an issue. It is the kind, neighborly thing to do. A brother's revenge. This happened back in 2008 when we were doing the electrical on a 5-story, 48-unit condo building. I'm from a family of electricians. I'm an electrician, my brother is, and we both worked for our dad who used to own a very well-respected company. My brother and I were working in a unit on the 4th floor, stringing some cable. We're far enough into the project that the exterior doors/windows are installed, albeit with no hardware, but the ceilings are still wide open for the trades to do our thing. I went to grab some material, and when I came back, my brother has a shit-eating grin on his face, with my tools all over the floor, and my tool pouch hanging 15 feet up from a pipe, not a ladder in sight. I find a ladder, get my stuff all straightened out, and we're back to work after 15 minutes of dicking around. The little effer wouldn't set his tools down, kept his pouch on him all day. Fast forward 2 days, and my little bro leaves a unit to go grab something, but took off his pouch. He came back to me, wearing a shit-eating grin, his tools all over the floor and his tool pouch hanging in plain view on the balcony railing with a single screwdriver in it. The screwdriver he needs to unscrew the board holding the door shut to get his pouch. As you guys know from my last Petty Revenge episode, skillfully one-upping a sibling is no stranger to me. So, well played, brother. Well played. Tables of karma turned, as I willfully, gladly wrecked her life, denying her tenure. Welcome to Japan. This happened in Japan, so a lot won't make sense unless you have experienced living here. Thus, I had to provide a lot of details to enlighten you. My readers, please bear this in mind. I worked as an assistant language teacher, foreign English teacher, at a public Japanese junior high school in the early 2000s. This was a yearly contract, limited to 5 years, and the first year was a probation period. When hired, the hiring official at the Board of Education told me this was a formality. Do a good job, be friendly to the kids, and my contract would be easily extended. Basically, everyone was rehired. This job involved accompanying 6 Japanese English teachers to their classes, modeling correct English pronunciation, and working as their assistant teacher. Among the 6 teachers, one was a department head, and she set my schedule deciding which periods I worked and the teachers I assisted. In the beginning, I didn't know anything structure-wise about the Japanese school system, the teachers' backgrounds, etc. I just knew that I was the lowest guy on the totem pole, and I worked for these teachers. After some time, one of the Japanese English teachers casually mentioned to me that she had tenure. I had assumed that all of the teachers had tenure, but several of the Japanese English teachers were also on yearly contracts, including the department head, who was filling in for a tenured teacher, the original department head, on maternity leave. I thought this was a little strange, but in my eyes, I didn't see that this teacher did anything extra other than making my weekly schedule. I knew she was around my age and had been a teacher for a few years. There was a lot of strangeness I discovered while working, such as many of the teachers, tenured and non, only had associate degrees, including the department head. So this was Japan, and they did things differently. Strange, but whatever. I will admit, I was very naive. Some important details to know at this point. My position, no tenure possible, work 5 years, move on. The Japanese yearly contract teachers also had 5-year limits, but if they passed the national teachers exam, they would earn tenure. They had to pass this exam within 5 attempts in 5 years. Also important detail. Again, I didn't know these latter details at the time. I had been working there for about 6 months, and one day I'm walking to class with the acting department head. She mentions to me that she heard how much the assistant language teachers make. There were 10 of us scattered at various schools in the city. I prefer not to talk about such matters, so I nodded and listened. That's a lot of money for only 6 hours a day. My contract, it ended there. Note, all of the Japanese teachers, tenured or not, typically worked 10-hour days, often more. At this point, it is March. The school year has ended, and the new school year starts in April. The Board of Ed calls to notify me that I need to come in and discuss my contract for the next school year. I went to this meeting with confidence. Arriving in the office, I am met by 3 to 4 stern-looking officials, and they informed me that my evaluation submitted by the school was unsatisfactory, and the school recommended that I not be rehired by the board. Stunned is an understatement. More details emerged. Comments from the evaluation, such as bad attitude, unfriendly, not a team player, none of it justified. I asked who submitted the eval, and they told me the department head, but the input was from all the English teachers. My explanations to these accusations were going nowhere, so finally, I pleaded for them to call the school and individually ask the remaining teachers of their evaluations. I sincerely believed I had good relations with all of the teachers. Rather than firing me on the spot, which they were planning, they agreed and only mentioned they would get back to me. A few days passed, and I was cleared by the Board of Ed for another year. They simply said that there was a misunderstanding, and they apologized. Arriving back at the school in April, a few English teachers who had worked there the previous school year explained that they had submitted all positive notes to the department head, but the department head obviously did not submit those. This teacher had also moved on to another school, as the teacher on maternity leave, the original department head, had returned, so I had no chance to directly confront her. A few years passed without incident. I changed schools, and I now worked in the prefecture capital. I was asked by the prefectural board if I would like to proctor the national teachers exams on a Saturday for extra cash. I agreed. The other foreign teachers and I had to sit as the primary interviewers for the interview portion of the exam and grade their exam essays. The interviewing team consisted of 3 people, myself, and 2 school principals who didn't speak English. I had a list of about 50 questions. About half were extremely easy, such as, why do you want to be a teacher? And some were quite difficult. How do you cultivate positive relationships with your students and create a sense of class community? I honestly don't remember the exact questions, only that about half were easy, half were difficult, even difficult if you were interviewing in your native tongue. I ran the entire interviews for all applicants that day. The principals just sat and marked scores. I tended to shy away from the difficult questions because I had at this point worked for nearly 3 years and knew the English level of most teachers. It usually was pretty basic. When the applicants had left the room, the principals asked for my ratings for the questions I asked. The scoring was a simple 1 to 10 rating. If I said 10, they circled 10. 1, they circled 1, and so forth. They officially recorded the scores, but solely relied on my judgment, no questions asked. There were about 20 applicants I had to interview that day. The interviews were quick, and I didn't take note of the names until the applicants walked in. As I'm looking down, reading the next applicant's name, I pause, and then the door closes. As I look up, I see the applicant's face turn from confidence to dread. The tables had turned. My former department head sits, and I got to it. choosing only the difficult questions that had no business being on that exam. She didn't have a chance. The interview concludes, she leaves, and the principal asks for my rating. 1, 1, 1, etc. down the line, and they circled. After the interviews, I also had the great pleasure of grading all of the essays of the same applicants I had interviewed. Have you ever heard that essay grading is subjective? Well, I will let that question hang. She definitely didn't pass the nationals teacher exam that year, and I do believe that the year I graded her interview and essay was likely year 5, her last attempt. I gave my cat the ultimate hiss. So let me preface this by saying that my cat is fine, was not harmed, and is sitting, purring next to me as I speak. On to the story. My cat is a bit naughty. To be fair, it goes both ways. She'll scratch my chair to get my attention, then run away, meow loudly when I'm concentrating on something to startle me, jump on me when I'm sleeping, and such things. In return, I tickle her nose with a bird feather when she sleeps, pretend I'm going to pick her up, which she hates, and twig her tail when she's not seen me yet, giving her a little start. To say that we're assholes to each other is a fair point, but we love each other all the same. This is normally totally harmless, but a couple of weeks back, she started threatening to chew the wires on my phone charger when it's sitting by my bed at night. This scares the hell out of me for 2 reasons. My phone charger runs at 5 volts, 2.4 amps. If you know anything about electricity, you know that while this is a heavy, painful jolt for a human, it's deadly for something the size of a cat. 2. A cat sitting on a bedside table is in no way grounded. At first, I start telling her off, but she just ignored me and kept going. I started to blow into her face. It's a dominance thing for a cat, and a good way to dissuade them from doing something. And that worked for about a week. After that, she just gave me a dirty look and tried to chew them again until I buried them under paper. When she started to knock the paper off the table to get them, I knew it was serious. I devised a plan. I went down to a local office store and got some supplies. That night, I waited with the cord in my phone, charging with no paper over the phone. She jumps up on the table, makes sure I'm watching her, and then starts to chew the cable. I told her off, which she ignored, and then I enacted my plan. I took a breath like I was going to blow into her face, at which point she shot me a dirty look. That's when I slowly pulled the can of compressed air out from under the sheets and gave her a short blast straight into her face. The effect was instantaneous and spectacular. The cat launched herself up 2 feet and back 6 feet off the bedside table. She landed safely on the ground in the bedroom. She checked fur, and seeing nothing there, looked at me in what I can only describe as abject horror. Eyes wide, mouth dropped open, every bit of fur sticking out. She stood like that for a few seconds before shaking herself out of it and tearing off into the lounge room. I went out and made a cup of tea and sat near the sofa she was under after putting some tuna and a saucer of milk down. It didn't take her long to come out looking for sympathy cuddles. It's been a week now. I think she's figured the cords are off limits. Fingers crossed. Does OP have the same cat as me? My cat and I have a love-hate relationship, as in, I love her and she hates me. No, she doesn't hate me and we snuggle quite often, but my cat is just very particular. And she does actually listen really well. Unless it comes to chicken wings or ice cream, then all rules and manners go out the window. She is a simp for chicken wings. I'm a horrible enabler though, because she's so damn adorable that I feel bad whenever I get mad at her, which I'm sure doesn't help with her behavioral issues, but I digress. And yes, I talked about my cat, so I will pay the cat tax and share a picture of her, so here she is. She's a fluffy Maine Coon named Luna. See, how could you not let that adorable face do whatever she wants? But anyways, that is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed those 4 petty revenge stories. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I truly appreciate when you do, and I will see you in the next Reddit story. Bye!